Hello, and we are back. So this is the first B2B Comms Breakdown of 2024. And welcome if you're new to the show, and hello again if you've kind of used to watch us before. I'm Ayo and I. I am a marketing consultant, and I specialise in working, doing digitally led marketing with architects and engineers and other people in the built environment space. I also do speaking and training as well, if that's the thing that you're into. So yeah.
And I'm Stacey Meadwell. I'm a former property journalist turned content creator working with businesses in the built environment. My main area is writing and ghostwriting, articles and thought leader, but I do some training and I do some moderating as well. So that's me.
I keep thinking ghostwriting. Oh, go on.
Sorry, you was about to say ghostwriting. Yeah, I like the term ghostwriting. And the thing is, if you tell people you're a ghostwriter, people think that you're ghostwriting autobiographies for famous people or
Come on, you did Katie Price. That was you, wasn't it?
I couldn't say. My lips are sealed. If you are watching live, please do put a comment in. Please do comment, because we don't know that anybody is watching unless we see comments. So just say hello or put an emoji or just put something so that we know that you are there watching.
Tell us about the weather. It was freezing this morning. That's what I thought when I was doing the school run. Oh my God. Cool. So in this episode, we wanted to look at content marketing when you are navigating choppy waters. At the moment, there are economic challenges and market challenges everywhere, I guess in the world, but also in our sector as well. And added to this, technology is evolving so much with the growth of AI, social media, changing so much as well. And I guess everything is kind of ever evolving. So it's actually quite hard to keep up with what you should and shouldn't be doing. And, there are plenty of headwinds and a lot of things for us all to consider. So what on earth do you focus on with your content marketing with all this going on and when budgets and resources are so tight?
Yeah, lots and lots going on. We are going to focus on 3 questions. We're going to look at, is 2024 time for a comms rethink? We're going to look at how you keep your prospects warm in a tough market and how to get the best value from your comms and demonstrate that value. And we're going to talk for about 20 to 30 minutes. But we also want to hear from you. If you are watching live or watching on the replay, pop a comment in if you've got some thoughts on what we're talking about, or if you've got a question, pop that in the comments and we will answer them towards the end. So let's get going. First question, Ayo.
So the first question is 2024 the year for a comms rethink? So I guess we've already had our end of year reviews. We are all kind of looking at, what happened then. And I kind of think it is. I think there is so much competition that we've all got to kind of up our game and just do a bit better. And I think, just following on from the intro, in some ways, it's like the market has shifted. It's become way more competitive. The platforms that we all use, like LinkedIn and Instagram. I mean, like LinkedIn last year, I think it must have had over 150 new features and elements added to it. It's like, how do you keep up? And then you've got kind of the algorithms, which are always ever changing as well. And there's also that shift as well with social platforms where they're all kind of moving towards pay to play. They want your money, basically. And I think as well that with the economy shifting and, the impact of kind of high interest rates, Liz Truss, all that kind of stuff, and the cost of living, it's so much more expensive. So I think, a comms rethink is something that we do have to do. And we have to kind of think about it in terms of, am I doing what I've always, should I be doing what I've always done? Is it still working? What should I be doing now? And, horizon scanning for kind of what the opportunities are and what else you could be doing content marketing wise that could actually work better for you and actually be more effective. So yeah, that's it. I think there's a lot happening. So in summary, and in terms of navigating such a challenging market, it's really focusing on what's really working now and what could be working. And I think always keep something aside to kind of trial things and try and learn and test and learn.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's a time to rationalize and streamline and really do an in-depth review of everything that you are doing. You ask those questions. Why are we going to that event? Why are we entering that award? Why are we on 12 different social media platforms? What are you getting from doing all of those things? Because I think if you in order to do stuff well, you need to do less when budgets are tight. So what can you let go so that you can focus your attention on something, on the things that really are going to deliver for you?
Yeah.
I mean, I think in terms of looking at new platforms or new areas to focus on, as you said in your intro, Io, things have changed. There are a lot more options out there. Your audience are going to be a more scattered. They've got more things to get their teeth into. Some people like videos, some people like podcasts, some people like content, and it wasn't like that a few years ago. There are so many different places and spaces, so many different tastes that can be catered for. So I think it's important to review where your audience is, and if you are trying to attract a particular type of audience, where are they? Are you in that space, and are you doing it well to meet that, to grab that audience? Thinking particularly if you're trying to grab a younger audience, they might not be in sort of spaces that you've been in for the last sort of 10 years or so. So think about where they are. I mean, I would add, if budgets are really tight and you are really time poor, you might have very limited resources. One thing you can do is review everything that you've already got. Do like a stock check of all the content that you've got, and have a look at what you can easily repurpose, update, and how you can use that and push that out onto channels. If that is, if it's a kind of like a lower cost option, because most businesses will have a whole ton of content that they've made, and some of it will be evergreen, some of it will be reusable, so it's worth doing a bit of a stock take.
Yeah, no, I think that stock take is such a good idea, because, and quite often we get so busy creating new that we're not actually making the most of the existing, and it doesn't ever get the airtime that it should actually get. So I think, especially in challenging times, I think that's definitely one where you could sit there and go, we could actually reuse this, create some new social graphics and stuff, and off you go, and it's like a new piece of content. It wouldn't take a lot of work.
Yeah, and then there may be stuff that there may be stuff that you've used in a particular format that there are now outlets. Like, for example, could you take reports or articles and turn them into a slide deck that you can upload onto LinkedIn? It's the same content but in a different format. There's lots of different things that you can do with existing content. There's so many different ways of presenting information now that weren't necessarily available or easily available. Then all that is there at your fingertips now, particularly using platforms like LinkedIn. Shall we move on? Oh, hello, Alison. We have a comment. Hi, Alison. Thank you for commenting. It's
always
nice
like
to
this in my there.
Yes, it's nice to know. It's nice to know. You've put a question. We'll come back to your question in a moment. Our second question is: only 5% of the market is in a position to buy at any one time. So how do you keep the 95% of your prospects warm in a tough market?
Do you want to kick off with that, or shall I?
I don't mind kicking off. I mean, we had a long conversation about this earlier in the week, didn't we, Io? We put the world to rights, and there's lots of different elements here. I mean, I think one of the key things, I've got a very long bullet point list, so I won't go through everything. I think one of the key things is, are you talking to your existing customers regularly? Are you talking to people that you have worked with in the past that could, come back to you? Are you talking to them regularly? And I don't mean sending salesy stuff, but actually, are you keeping those lines of communication open? So that's the first thing that I would look at, because a big part of content is to increase your visibility, is to put yourself in front of people. And there are obviously different ways of doing this. If you've got a newsletter, are you using that effectively? Are you sending that out to your mailing list regularly? There are other things that you can do, and one of the things that we talked about, to sort of make sure that you are front of mind and they're ready for when people want to buy, that you are the person, your company is who people think of, is through thought leadership, is showcasing your knowledge of expertise. People might not be ready to use your services, but showing that you know what you're talking about, that you can help them through thought leadership, through articles that are helpful to your target audience. It's a really good way of doing that, and getting ahead of the trends. If you're talking to a lot of people, you will notice things, and think about how you can use that information and knowledge to help people. You might say, well, there's something coming down the line that actually is going to have a big impact for our potential clients, for our existing clients. Let's talk about that. Let's raise awareness so that you are showcasing that you've got your finger on the pulse. I've got other things I want to say, but I'm going to hand over to you, Ayo, because I can come back to some of the things, because I've got a long
long
list.
is your
But it's
bullet point
basically
list?
It's about 8 things on there.
So this is now
But I suppose
the
key point is don't, yes, part of it is you want to increase your network, but it's about how well are you keeping up that relationship with your existing network, with your existing clients and past clients.
I think it's just building. I completely agree with what you've said, but I think it's also it's building on that thing of, how do you keep a contact warm? Because if they're only 5% of that actual target audience are actually in the market at one time to actually be ready to buy, that means that 95% is very, very much about keeping them warm. And I think in the past few years, it was very much about performance marketing and leads and getting ads and just driving leads and sales. But it's like ads have become more expensive. Privacy concerns, all of that kind of stuff means that they're just not as effective as they once were, and they're costing more. So I think that whole kind of thought leadership angle is another opportunity to actually be more effective and get more value in your marketing. So just understanding how that works, how to produce, I guess, valuable content is so good. And I think as well, what you said about the whole thing about, the existing audiences and they're your biggest kind of opportunity, I think that's also very, very true. And actually, I was listening to the Uncensored CMO podcast yesterday with Antonia Wade, who's a CMO for PwC. And she's saying, most of our campaigns are about those existing audiences and how we get more of their share of their spend. So if you find you're only working for a sliver of that client, what else can you do? Deliver that service really well, build those relationships, talk about, how you can support them and be their trusted advisor and actually scale what you're doing. Because it's so much easier to sell to somebody who knows your company already than actually going out and finding new. And I just think that's actually where our opportunities lie. But for us, I guess it's that shiny new thing, shiny object syndrome again, isn't it? Where we're all just running out to go, let's get some more new clients. It's like, actually, your existing ones are probably going to be the easiest sell for you and the quickest sell, right? So I think there's definitely that. And I think as well, it's just understanding, I guess, where we are as a market and that people can't afford to get things wrong. So if I'm a buyer, I need to be confident that you can do the job and that you will deliver. So those testimonials, those case studies, those examples, anything that you can share about your process, to give me that reassurance that if I am investing my dollars with you, that, I will get the service I need and I will get the outcomes that I need. And I think that's something we've all got to get better doing. So actually just having that robustness, and this is what my process is, this is how long it will take, this is what it will be like to work with me, and really getting some of that baseline content that you might think is irrelevant, but just developing that if you've got time, because I think again it's about reassuring that customer that you are the right choice. So how can you do that? And I think as a challenging market, people can't afford to make those mistakes or be burned, that's for sure.
It's really talking about this has just reminded me of something that my mum used to say to me when I was a kid, and it was about friendship, but I think it works the same way for it's applicable to clients, and that is make new friends but keep the old. One is silver, one is gold. And I think that's the same, it's such a pertinent point about if you can go out and seek new clients, and I think that's important, increasing your network. And I think increasing the stable of your audience, broadening your audience is really, really important. But don't forget those people that you've already worked with, that you've already connected with. And it can be something as simple as, if you're putting out content on LinkedIn and people are commenting on it, are you replying? Are you getting a conversation going in your content? And it's only a small little thing, but actually just being accessible and being engaged with the people out there is such a good way of building those connections and building those relationships, building
it's not
on
even
existing relationships.
But it's not even just doing the post on the LinkedIn about that piece of content. You might turn around and go, actually, this would be really valuable to this client that I'm working with because, and you just drop them a little note. Hi, I've delivered this. I've just produced this. I thought you might find it interesting because it's just, showing that you're thinking of them. And I think it's those types of things that I think they seem so simplistic that it's really easy to overlook.
Yeah.
But in terms of like relationship building and being kind of someone who's like, oh yeah, they're actually thinking of me, and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's those little touches, and that's what we've all got to kind of do in the current time, right?
Absolutely. And it's that personalization, rather than sending out something that's very generic. And it's really powerful. Everybody loves to kind of receive something that is know that you've been in someone's thoughts, of receiving something useful. It is very, very powerful, very powerful. Alison, we will come back to your question about LinkedIn. It's a very good question, and we've both got a lot to say on it, I'm sure.
Never.
But shall we move on to our third and final question? How do you get the best value from comms and demonstrate that value? And you can go first on this.
I think for me, it's like, what's your starting point and what is it after you've done whatever action that you're going to take? So very much about benchmarking, and it could be just, taking your LinkedIn SSI, which I can't say, SSI scores, also looking at, how many followers you have, how much engagement you have, and then kind of, just taking a little note before you start doing whatever activity you're going to do. And then actually, once you've done the activity, starting to review that and seeing how you go. And I think it's easy to forget how much progress you do make over the mid to long term and kind of where you started from. So I think, just giving yourself that kind of little kind of piece of recognition and that kind of time to kind of reflect is really useful. And I think don't just focus on the numbers, also look at the kind of qualitative when you're out and about, doing face-to-face networking, as Alison's talking about. Where people are like, oh, I saw your post about, or really liked your last live, or, and that's all engagement and that's all metrics that should all be part of the pot as well. And I think we've all got to get better at that whole kind of the best of both worlds, which is very much about digital marketing and in-person marketing, both feeding off each other and supporting each other. And I think as well, it's not just the likes, it's that kind of thing of how do I get people from the social media platforms and actually transfer them into more direct conversations, meetings, virtual calls, in-person meetings. So I think understanding that customer journey and how you can kind of work them through that process, I think is also quite important as well. So yeah, those are my main kind of ways of kind of looking at the best value that you can kind of get out of your comms.
Which is increasingly important, when budgets are tight, because everyone's going to be putting a spotlight on going, well, what value are we getting for what we're spending on all of this? And I think it comes back to your point about that customer journey or client journey, and sort of moving from someone from social media or a platform like LinkedIn into sort of something a face-to-face. And I think that's also where those direct messages come in, whereas those little personalizations, because if you've built up that connection, if you've had those conversations that aren't necessarily around sort of them paying you money for your service or buying a product, it makes it so much easier when you've already got that connection and you've got to know that person. And I completely agree about the quantitative. I knew I was not going to be able to say that. Quantitative and qualitative. And that's the only time I'm going to say those two words. I think it's such an important thing. You know, regardless of whether you're a big company or a small, you know, I make a note of certain stats at the beginning of the year, LinkedIn stats, subscribers, that sort of, you know, to my newsletter, or those kind of things. And so I can track them, so I can make sure things are working. But there's a lot more detailed metrics that you can get, particularly for on LinkedIn. You can actually, I know this is something that you mentioned when we were chatting earlier in the week, Ayo. You can see who is looking at your profile. You know, you can see who is watching your live video. You know, there are all these metrics, so you can check that the right people, you are targeting the right people. So there are layers of data that you can get from that. And you know, it's not just about the vanity metrics. I mean, obviously, yes, you want to broaden your reach, and that is important, but it's how that translates further down the line. Is that translating into conversations in the comments? Are those comments and conversation online moving into direct messages? Are those direct messages moving into face-to-face meetings? So yeah, I completely agree with all of those.
Brilliant.
Should we?
And if
shall we
anyone
go?
else,
Sorry,
go
go
for
on.
it. I'm just going to say,
you first.
I was just going to say, should we move on to the questions, which is what you were going to say. If anyone else has any questions who's watching, as we keep tripping over each other, please feel free to put them in the comments and we will answer them. And let's kick off with Alison's question. Do you want to read it?
Sure, yeah. We are only one. I mean, I'm assuming you mean one platform, LinkedIn, and still find face-to-face networking works better. What really works on LinkedIn? Stories, infographics, videos, blogs, and how do I repurpose? Or where do we start? We are going to actually, our next episode, spoiler alert, we're going to do something on. We're going to do something specifically on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has got so many different things that you can do. I could talk for hours on it, but I won't. I think the key is to find out what works with your audience, but don't just focus on one thing. So don't just do text posts, do some picture posts. Don't just do, you know, text posts and picture posts, maybe do a video, you know, maybe do a carousel. You know, or a slider. I never know what to call it. It's where you upload a PDF and people can kind of scroll.
People just talk
can kind of like scroll through it. All of these things are different ways, and actually you can repurpose. Say if you've got blog or articles or reports, or you know, you're producing content elsewhere off LinkedIn, you can repurpose that into, you know, a longer article can make 3 short LinkedIn posts, or you can take the key points from an article and turn that into a slider or a carousel, whatever you want to call it. I think the key thing is to not treat LinkedIn like it's a broadcast, but treat it, whatever you post, as a conversation starter. You know, encourage people to engage with what you're posting about and get conversations going, because that's where the value is. Not only because, you know, from a pure simple technical point of view, your post will get a lot more reach if it's got comments and engagement. Basically, if it's got no comments or, you know, not many likes, it won't get that much reach. But that's where the value comes from, is actually starting those conversations. So
and I think it's making sure that you ask questions. So I often do is I give my opinion, and then I will ask a question. What do you think? You know, how are you experiencing it? How's the market for you? And it's just always trying to kind of, I guess, like Stacey said, it's about how do I start that conversation? And that's really what you're trying to do on social media. And I think as well, thinking about, you know, the time you're posting is at a time when your target audience are actually online. So for me and you, we kind of post like beginning of the day or lunchtime, because actually that's most likely when people are checking their LinkedIn's, and that's when they're most likely to engage. So it's just thinking through those things. But I like doing a mix of stuff, because I'd get bored if I just did one thing. And sometimes if I've seen a good podcast or I've read something, I might just share a link to that with just a simple line about why I found it interesting. So for me, I think try the mix and then see what's working for you and what you enjoy doing and what people engage with you. I've had a lot of success, like I said, especially with polls. I do polls quite well, and polls are quite an interesting one, because I generally do that if I've got a question myself, or if something I've seen kind of makes me question, and I will do a simple poll on it, and that does tend to work for me. And I think it's just trying different ways to kind of stoke that conversation and seeing what works. And in terms of repurposing, I do have a database of like every post I've done for coming up to 4 years. Which is really useful because it's categorized. So I can search for keywords, which is a good starter for 10. But in terms of ideas and things, I'm constantly, I have an area where I save articles that are of interest or podcasts that are of interest and things that I can share. So I kind of capture stuff as I'm going. And I also use, and that's kind of how I end up creating content, really, and repurposing, if that's what I'm doing, is looking back at what I've already got. So, yeah.
And I just wanted to come back to what you were saying about, post when your audience is around, which is, yes, and you can learn, you can tell when people are around by how quickly people engage. But I would the caveat to that is I would say don't get hung up on it. If you've got time to do a post, 7 o'clock in the evening, just do it. And I try and switch up. I have sort of 3 key times when I generally post, and I try and switch it up. So I won't post, first thing in the morning every single day. I might post one at lunchtime, or occasionally I'll do a tea time, because then you can pick up different audiences. Because if you're only posting at the same time, generally if people are on the platform, people have their routines, they'll be checking the platform at certain times. And if the morning is their time, you're missing out on those people who check who were sitting scrolling through LinkedIn in the evening. So I wouldn't get too hung up on it. Monitor it, see what works best. I worked out that posting at the weekend was a waste of time because no one was around. But then I know some people, like to post at the weekend and get lots of engagement. So, it's all about monitoring it.
So yeah, hope that helps. Does anybody else have any questions?
Before we finish.
I know. It's like it's very quiet today. Everyone's off. I don't know. Maybe they were freezing in the snow or something.
Yeah, it's very cold. Very cold.
Right. Well, it doesn't look like we've got any other questions, Stace.
So let's thank you.
There you go. No. Stuff came up.
It's always at the final when we say we're just about to go. Yes, that's Carolina. That's a very good point about different time zones too. If you're reaching an international audience or trying to reach an international audience, think about the time zones.
That's so true. As someone who's thinking about doing international masterclasses, I'm like, I'll be there.
Yeah, there's a lot of I do some work with some clients abroad, and it's that dilemma of working out what time meetings should go in, so that it's not too unsociable. Yeah.
And we've got a comment from Mel Barfield. I tend to get 17 ideas at once. That sounds like me. And have to paste them, spread them out by scheduling. Yes, scheduling's also good. Metrical, fantastic scheduling tool. I also love logging in later in the day to get the American and Canadian audience. Some of my faves. Oh, you like Americans? That's nice.
That's a really good idea. Not just posting at different times, but actually logging on to the platform at different times, because that's different people are active at different times. That's a really good idea.
It is. So I think that's
thanks for that.
Close.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mel.
Thanks, Mel. Thanks for everybody for watching. Really do appreciate it. Thank you for all our comments and questions. If you are watching on the replay, then and you do have a question or a comment, then do pop it in the comments, because we will come back to it even after the even after we've finished. Oh, we've got Claire's jumped in with one final
Go,
question.
Claire.
Quickly, what, 1 minute? Right. Which slide deck program do you prefer using? Is this to create? I'm assuming this is to create. I use Canva to create.
I do as well.
I create it in Canva and save it as a PDF and upload that way.
I just use Canva as
what
well.
I use. Yeah.
I just think it's very, and yeah, even the free level is very good, and you can do a lot on that. So I think the only thing is, don't be scared to bold text, just because it at times it doesn't always show up as much. I always get that thing about, it's like little tips like that when you're actually doing the PDFs. Just kind of make it so it's visible and not have too many words on the slide, so people can read it. But yeah, Canva all the way.
Claire, interested to know, Claire, what platform you are using at the moment. Are you using Canva or are you using something else? Because I'm always interested in what other. It's the question I'm always asking people. Oh, how did you make that? What did you use? What apps did you use? Particularly on video. Always.
Stacey.
Yeah. No. Anyway, we have reached our half-hour mark. So thank you very much for watching. Thanks very much for your comment, all your comments and your questions. As I have already mentioned, we will be back on the 16th of February, and we already have our topic idea, don't we, Ayo?
Yes, we do. Shh, don't tell them. It's a joke. It's hidden.
So, well, I was going to hand over to you to actually say what the topic was, but I can talk about it if you want.
So, I was joking. So the topic is actually the hidden features of LinkedIn. So we're going to talk about the stuff that people do, the facets and all the kind of areas of LinkedIn that people aren't necessarily making the most of. So if your idea is to make the most of one kind of social media platform, we'll kind of do a deep dive on how you can get the most out of LinkedIn.
Great, brilliant. Well, thank you so much, and hopefully see you back here on the 16th for our next live. Look out for the event post on LinkedIn. Follow us if you're not already following us. Connect, please do connect. Happy to connect with people.
We're always there at certain
times. We're always there.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sam. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.